Hello everybody, a long time no see. I hope this video goes well today because I've already spent over an hour doing this video without my headphones on, which caused some echoes and stuff. But today we're going to revisit a video I done on another channel about 2 years ago, and I think my reason for putting this on this channel and revisiting it on this channel is it kind of delves into the paranormal when it comes to spiritual beliefs and stuff. This is to do with L Ron Hubbard and the cult or Church of Scientology. As a lot of people would know, the Church of Scientology has a lot of properties all over the world. Some of these properties are houses that were built and maintained, are still being built and maintained for the return of L Ron Hubbard, who died in something like 1986. Now, the reason for that is the belief system was that when you join Scientology, there is a thing called the 1 billion year contract. Now, why so long? Well, normal society would say that somebody passes away or somebody dies. In Scientology, you don't die, you drop the body. You're allowed 21 years of absence when that occurs. But you have to come back because you signed a 1 billion year contract. And when you drop the body again, you come back. So that's what the belief system is. L Ron Hubbard died in a motorhome that was inside the stables of one of the properties that's going to be talked about today. And the reason why he was staying in a motorhome inside the stables was the house that the property was on was being renovated at the time. When he passed away, the renovations were complete, ready for him to come back. Not only that, but under the directions of David Miscavige, the current leader of Scientology, another house with the value of over $10 million was built for L Ron Hubbard. Also on the property would be garages for his various cars, motorcycle, his motorhome that he died in, etc. Mike here is going to go into that. This is Mike Rinder. Mike Rinder was the head of the Office of Special Affairs, and he escaped Scientology from an office in London. He will briefly talk about that too. This is not a video to talk about the politics around that, so I'm not going to get into that. But he did put out a good video in relation to the properties of L Ron Hubbard. So we're going to go through that today. Sadly, Mike passed away over the last year or so from cancer, so condolences to his family. Anyway, let's bring it over to Mike and let's see what he's got for us.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk about something that doesn't get a lot of attention in the world of Scientology, or actually outside the world of Scientology, but it's sort of a significant thing for a number of reasons. L Ron Hubbard died in 1986. The Scientology world was told by David Miscavige that he had causatively discarded his body in order to continue the research that he must now do, and that his body had become an encumbrance. Of course,
hey, before I go on, there is videos on YouTube of the announcement of the death of L Ron Hubbard, and it was kind of weird. People in Scientology are not allowed to be sad. They're not allowed to get upset. And they announced it in that kind of way that he has dropped the body or discarded the body and has gone up to some place called Target 2, which is some planet or something like that, to finish his work, which would be the OT levels. Now, what is OT levels? OT levels are the courses that you do in Scientology with the goal of reaching the bridge to total freedom, which doesn't really happen, to be honest with you. But the courses go up from OT1 to OT8. Apparently, L Ron Hubbard has gone up to Target 2, discarded the body, and is writing the OT levels for 9 and 10 and 11 or whatever. That's basically a rough explanation of all of that. How people believe these things, I do not know. When you think about it, and you think about Target 10 or Target 2 or what, Target 2 it was called or whatever. I don't know where Target 1 is, but you gotta remember, and Scientologists seem to forget, that L Ron Hubbard was a science fiction writer. So, each to their own, I suppose.
That was not, in fact, true. He had been very sick. He had had a stroke. He had pancreatitis. And he had passed away in a motorhome in the ranch that he was hiding out in near San Luis Obispo in California. What's really interesting is that subsequent to his death, Scientology, under the direction of David Miscavige, built various mansions and homes for L Ron Hubbard to occupy. Now, these are not they're not museum pieces. They are actually homes that it was intended that Hubbard would return to occupy. The most famous of these is the one that is at Golden Era Productions called Bonneview, and you can see a picture of it here. This is probably cost $10 million or more to construct. It was done all well after the ashes of L Ron Hubbard had been scattered at sea. It includes not just the main mansion house there that you see there, but also a guest house, a shooting range, an indoor swimming pool, tennis courts, a laundry facility, a big garage. In fact, this house, or this home, or this mansion is equipped with everything that L Ron Hubbard would need in order to carry on his work as the head of Scientology.
It's flipping nuts. Oh. When you there's the main house. I don't know what this is, but this may be a garage, or maybe this. Up here, there seems to be buildings that are the same colour as these, so I'm thinking that this may be part of the property. And then there's something here, like a swimming pool or something. It's flipping nuts. This was built after he died, for him to come back to. Try to wrap your head around that.
His clothes are all in this home. They are laid out for him each day. The clothes that he would wear, jackets and pants, watches, jewelries, hats, belts, everything is laid out. There is a kitchen that is a fully operational kitchen. His vehicles that he owned, a white Cadillac limousine, a tan-colored International Scout 4x4, a little blue and white Dodge Dart, a the motorhome that he died in, the motorcycle that he had on the Apollo, they're all kept in the garage at this facility, and they are maintained with gas in the tank.
These days I can't afford gas in my tank. But the one thing that went through my mind there was, I was wondering, did they buy food for the kitchen for L Ron Hubbard to come back? And when he doesn't show up, what happens to the food? It's just one of them things I was thinking of, you know what I mean?
And they are started, on a routine basis to make sure that they are ready to go at the drop of a hat when Ron returns.
Imagine working, doing, your housework, working in Scientology, doing the housework in this house, and doing the maintenance on this house, knowing that you're completely and utterly wasting your time because this guy is not going to show up. But obviously they don't think in that kind of way. It's really hard to get your head around this.
This is not the only property that was constructed after his departure. There are a bunch of other ones too. And most of those, well, let's first take up the ranch where he died, the Whispering Winds Ranch near Paso Robles in Central California.
Yeah, I've seen that.
He was not occupying the house at the time of his death. As I said, he was in a motorhome that was parked in the stables of this property because the house was being renovated for him to live in. Subsequent to his death, the house renovations were completed so that he would be able to live in it should he return, or when he returned.
Better late than never, I suppose.
Nobody else is allowed to occupy this house, or any of the other ones that I am going to show you. These are all exclusively for the use of L Ron Hubbard,
who died a long time ago. And he's not coming back. Oh, God.
So there is Whispering Winds. I then need to explain to you that there is an organization in Scientology called the Church of Spiritual Technology.
I don't know if I should say it. Imagine having a house named after a quiet fart. I'll leave that one with you.
And this was created by, or at the direction of Hubbard, because Hubbard wanted to have his legacy preserved for all time. These are the people that etch the writings of L Ron Hubbard onto stainless steel plates and then store them in titanium containers filled with argon gas, sealed in nuclear bomb-proof vaults.
Yeah, this vault, it looks like it's kind of out in the desert, but there's a building, and then there's a kind of an underground storage facility, and this thing must have cost millions. It's flipping crazy, like.
They are also the people who have purchased these properties that I will go through now and show you. And at each of these properties, they have built, newly constructed, a home for L Ron Hubbard.
Take into account that this church has tax-exempt status in the United States. Tax-exempt status because it's a church. And all the properties, and the properties in this this video today is to do with L Ron Hubbard personally, is offices and houses. That is just a small portion in comparison to the properties that Scientology own in Clearwater, Los Angeles, and other places all over the world. It's like a real estate business that has slaves working for them because they only get about $45 a week.
This is the Church of Spiritual Technology headquarters at Twin Peaks in the San Bernardino Mountains above Los Angeles.
This is this is the area where the wife of David Miscavige, who is the current leader of Scientology, his wife was banished to. She was by his side for a while, and then all of a sudden she disappeared. There was no talk of it. You weren't allowed to ask questions about it, and it was just brushed under the carpet. But it was believed that Shelley Miscavige was banished to here. News reporters ended up at the gates, ringing the buzzer, saying, "Where's Shelley Miscavige?" And this thing has gone on for years. Why she was banished, I do not know. Why she stayed in the church, I do not know. There's a big sort of mystery around. She is around. She did renew her driver's license. She was at her father's funeral, etc. So she's still within Scientology, but she's just hidden away. I don't know why.
This is actually the facility that is the headquarters of CST. CST is this property is where Shelley Miscavige was originally taken when she was banished from the base.
I like this. You see, this sends up red flags straight away. She was taken. You know, this is really messed up.
I believe that she is still there, although there's absolutely no proof of it, because nobody has seen nor heard from Shelley outside of the Scientology world since she disappeared in 2005, other than to attend her father's funeral a couple of years later. This picture here is a picture of the home that was created there for L Ron Hubbard. It is the largest building on the property, I believe, but in any event, it's a substantial home. It is not just a shack, it's a real place. Next is the facility that CST has in the middle of nowhere, literally. A place called Trementina in New Mexico, out in the desert. Nobody for dozens, if not 50 miles. This is the L Ron Hubbard house, built in the middle of nowhere in Trementina, New Mexico.
That's flipping massive. And look, there's not a house for miles around. And most likely somebody has to maintain that house. And the same preparations as any other house. Have it in an order that would be ready for L Ron Hubbard to just walk in the door. It is flipping crazy. I presume there's electricity there, but I don't see any wires, overhead wires or anything like that. But that is definitely in the middle of nowhere.
It is just not believable that this is actually happening. There is another property called the Lady Washington Mine in Tuolumne, Central California. This is just outside of Yellowstone. The house that you see on the left here is the Hubbard house at the Tuolumne facility.
Right here.
Then there is Petrolia in Northern California. This is a much larger property with many other things on it, but this is the house that was built for L Ron Hubbard in Petrolia.
I wonder, was it after he died? Like, it's big. I wonder, is this part of it too? I presume it is, because there doesn't seem to be houses around. So I'm taking that this is a dead end. This property around is probably part of the property too, sort of thing. And this is part of it too. But it's not small, you know? This is for a dead guy, guys.
You may wonder what the purpose of all these homes is.
Yes.
And I don't know that anybody has a real good reason other than CSG had plenty of money. They want or had the idea that Hubbard was returning, and so they constructed homes for him. You know, I don't know if he asked for it or if it's just being done at the direction of David Miscavige. Who knows? Either way, it doesn't really matter. There is a hell of a lot of money being spent on building houses and mansions for an old dead guy.
That's absolutely, yeah.
Here is another one. Most people are unaware of the fact that there is a full suite for L Ron Hubbard to live in on the 11th floor of the Hollywood Guarantee Building. The Hollywood Guarantee Building is the headquarters of Scientology, Church of Scientology International, also where the Office of Religious Technology Center is. It's on the 11th floor. Also on the 11th floor, which you can see outlined in red there at the front, is a suite for L Ron Hubbard to live in. That suite,
Wow.
Most of the people, even the Sea Org members in this building who work in this building at Church of Scientology International, are unaware that that even exists. That the right-hand most elevator in the bank of 4 elevators in this building is blocked off on the 11th floor, cordoned off or walled off. You can only access this suite through that elevator, and nobody who doesn't have permission to even know about this ever gets in that elevator and stops at the 11th floor.
I'm familiar with this building because I was into watching the protesters in Los Angeles, the TikTok and the YouTube live streamers doing the protests outside the buildings. And this is one of the buildings that they protested outside of. You know? I didn't know anything about this before I actually seen the video and that. But, yeah, this is, this is another piece of space reserved for the return of L Ron Hubbard, who is well overdue coming back and hasn't come back, and they still maintain these spaces for him. It's just, it's hard to get your head around.
It can't stop there unless you have a key. So the vast majority of people in the Sea Org don't even know that this facility exists. So then we're going to move on to some other ones. Hubbard's home, original home at St. Hill in England. Now, this place was purchased by Hubbard back in 1959, I think. He eventually had to leave St. Hill because the British government was no longer granting him a visa to remain in the UK. And that's when he went off. He, first of all, when the trouble started, he went off to Rhodesia, tried to take over that country, failed miserably, came back, and then went off to create the Sea Organization, where he was outside the control of any specific government and could vanish into international waters.
This is one of the places in the UK that I actually have been in. And it was in 2015. I wasn't aware at the time that Scientology was in East Grinstead. All I seen was a small town with very old Georgian type buildings, or do you know those old buildings with the oak frame on the outside, and some of them are kind of crooked and that, and it's just all really old fashioned. It was like going into a film set. And my friend, who I had to bring with me because I don't like going unfamiliar places alone, I get lost and stuff, she was looking up interesting places in East Grinstead, and this came up, the home of Scientology. And apparently at the time she said that this place was actually under renovations at the time in 2015. Whether that was true or not, I don't know, but there's not only this building, there's new buildings on the site, which is a big array of massive buildings for the UK Scientology movement. Now, there's going to be a small photograph above Mike that I put in there, and I think the photograph that I put up there may be the back end of this building, you know.
But after he died, St. Hill was completely renovated and brought to...
Here is another picture of it, but as far as I can see, this possibly is the other side of that building, because you can see the extension here, which is almost flush with the building, but there's this area all here which is joined on there, so that gives me the indication that these side extensions come out a bit. Otherwise it's almost inform, you know. Then again, there's two windows on the sides here. I reckon this is the back of the building here, this one here, you know. I'll go back a tiny bit here.
That he died, St. Hill was completely renovated and brought to a level of furnishings and just everything was made better than it ever was, with the idea that I guess perhaps one might come home and want to go to St. Hill. So
I think my friend at the time says that Tom Cruise had a room in the house, or sometimes he could occupy the house, or something like that. You know, he was often seen helicopter, you know, arriving on this base by helicopter and stuff like that. He may have occupied this building for some time, or part of the building. I don't know. I don't know how true that is.
That was done. Then there is a whole bunch of other properties that have been purchased by Church of Spiritual Technology, theoretically because they are historically important to Scientology. They bought Ron's house in Bay Head, New Jersey, and completely restored and renovated it. This was where Hubbard wrote Dianetics. And so that now has become another of the Hubbard houses around the world that is kept. I don't think that this one or this next one, which is in Phoenix, here, this little place, were ever intended for Hubbard's return. But nevertheless, the money that is used for this is being subsidized by every taxpayer in the United States.
Like this, in comparison to the other houses, this is a kind of a cheap little cabin-y kind of thing. But I wouldn't say no, if you know what I mean. You know, beggars can't be choosers. You know, a house is a house. You know? But look at the surroundings. It's unbelievable. And these houses aren't occupied by any people, so there's no revenue being made off these houses. It gives you an indication of what kind of money is being donated to this church on a regular basis. It's flipping crazy. And we're not even talking about these other buildings, like the Fort Harrison in Clearwater and all the other buildings in Clearwater where they try to take over the whole town. Not to mention numerous buildings in Los Angeles and other places around the world. It's flipping crazy, like.
So there's a lot of things that, you know, you might be curious about here that maybe the IRS should be taking a look at this. Is this really a valid exempt purpose?
No.
I mean, here's another one. This is Joburg, a house that he occupied in Joburg when he was there in the early 60s, trying to inveigle himself into the apartheid government of South Africa. Again, he did not succeed in doing that, but now this has become, quote, an important historical home because L Ron Hubbard once lived there when he was in South Africa. The history of his life in South Africa isn't something that Scientology likes to talk about too much, but nevertheless, there it is. They also purchased a series of offices that Hubbard used. This one is Fitzroy Street.
This is London, and you know by the look of the buildings. Now, Michael go on to tell you this is where he escaped from. When you have to use the word escape, things aren't good. So, this may be a warning to people. Don't even, when you see these people on the street, just ignore them. Stay a mile away from them. Don't be tempted, because the very fact that this guy has to say he escaped should tell you all you want to know.
In London, what's significant about this one is that this is where I escaped from. I was actually working in this office at the time of my escape, and I walked out that front door there and never looked back. So, you know, this has got a sort of a soft spot for me, but it's again, this is a more money that has been spent to purchase and renovate a property simply because L Ron Hubbard was there once. Then there's another one here in Dublin. In Merrion Square. Hubbard went there to do what he called the Hubbard College of Personal Efficiency.
Which is probably a load of old shit.
The PE course, as it is known now. He had the idea that he was going to create this program that would disseminate Scientology like it had never been disseminated before. Something that you hear almost every day in Scientology. We've got the great new thing. Never worked out. They never even could open an org in Dublin until David Miscavige decided that we're just going to create one out of nothing. Then there is the original founding church of Scientology, the founding church of Washington, D.C. This too was purchased and renovated at great expense by CST. Not only are there these buildings around the world, every organization in Scientology is required to have an office for L Ron Hubbard. There are probably 300 offices of L Ron Hubbard or for L Ron Hubbard around the world.
My God. I have a small apartment. I don't have extra space. But every organization around the world has to have an office for a dead guy that isn't coming back. Please somebody make this make sense. Because I just... this is... Why do people fall for this?
They are in every organization, in every mission, and in fact, they are considered to be the most important thing, and what should have most money invested in it in any Scientology organization.
The most money spent in any organization should be the office of L Ron Hubbard, who's dead, who will never come back and use the office. Oh my God. It makes less and less sense the more you hear about it.
An office for Ron. When the superpower building was constructed at Flag, they went to the extent of recreating Hubbard's research room from the Apollo.
Right, I have to explain what the Apollo is. The Apollo's not a building. The Apollo was a ship. The ship that L Ron Hubbard fled in, the ship that he got a crew for, the ship that he operated on in international waters to avoid governments, basically. The ship they have now is a different ship as far as I know, but the ship that they have now is called the Free Winds. I don't see any recent videos on the Free Winds, so I don't know if that ship is just docked up and not being used. But yeah, it's another huge, massive expense. But this is basically the office that L Ron Hubbard had on the Free Winds. They took photographs of it and they recreated it in the Flag building. And this office is not going to be used. It's like L Ron Hubbard is God kind of thing, from what I understand. This is the way I see it.
This is what Hubbard's office looked like on the Apollo. They took photos, they recreated all of these things. Of course, it's much higher quality and much nicer than it was on the Apollo, but this is the sort of worship that goes on in Scientology toward L Ron Hubbard. And every new one of Miscavige's ideal orgs, these mausoleums of emptiness that he has created around the world with the theory that this is what's going to expand Scientology, every one of those has an L Ron Hubbard office. And they are the most opulent and well-appointed parts of each one of these buildings. Here is a picture of the last ideal org to open, which was Ventura. This is the L Ron Hubbard office. And as you can see, right off the Scientology website, it says, the office of L Ron Hubbard, as is traditional in all churches of Scientology, the office of L Ron Hubbard stands in honor of the religion's founder and symbolizes that this church is true to his writings and ideals.
Crazy.
Okay. Obviously, this raises the question, do Scientologists really think that L Ron Hubbard is coming back to take over Scientology again? And there are sort of two channels that this answer goes down. One, public Scientologists have generally been told that Ron is off at Target 2 researching the next OT levels and is waiting over there somewhere in the universe for everybody to accomplish what needs to be done on planet Earth and then move off with him to conquer the rest of the universe.
Here's the problem. I think the people in Scientology were promised the upper levels of OT, levels of 9 and 10 and all the rest of it. They said that those levels are coming. That was years ago. There's still no other higher level than level 8. OT levels, I don't know if I explained it because I've already done this video and made mistakes, but OT levels are courses that people have to pay lots of money for to climb the ladder with the goal of reaching the bridge to total freedom, as they call it. And I don't think it's achievable, sort of thing. But yeah, there's OT 1 to 8, and then L Ron Hubbard drops his body, he goes up to target 2 with the spaceman and writes the other OT levels, and they're still waiting for them. That basically my understanding of it. Now, there's no other levels other than OT8. The highest level is OT8. What a load of old nonsense.
Sea Org members, however, have long had the idea that Hubbard was coming back. The motto of the Sea Org is, "We come back." Sea Org members commit themselves to 1,000,000,000 years in service of Scientology. L Ron Hubbard granted Sea Org members who died a 21-year leave of absence. Sea Org members believed that Hubbard was coming back. 21 years was up in 2007, so he didn't show. But there was a hell of a lot of money spent preparing for his return, and I'm not sure whether they now believe that he still is coming back, or that that was perhaps a mistake.
They could they could get in contact with some ghost hunters and ask them to do a spirit box to see if L Ron Hubbard is coming back. They could ask him. Oh my God. I wonder, it's just going through my head, has Charlie Chitnam or Steve Huff or any of those ITC cloud chasers done a spirit box session on L Ron Hubbard? I'm going to look it up after this.
I believe, though I have not seen it personally, that there was a confidential communication that Hubbard wrote saying, "Here is how you will recognize me when I return, and this is when I will return, and this is where I will be." Obviously, that has not happened, but just as obviously, there is still crazy money being spent to build mansions, homes, and offices for a dead man. Now, is this really a valid, exempt
No.
organization expenditure? Is
No.
this something that the IRS should be looking into?
Yes.
I certainly believe so, but we'll see. I'm not sure when the IRS may ever get around to doing anything about the exempt status of Scientology. This is probably not highest on the list of important things. Their violations of public policy and financial irregularities and criminality are probably way more significant. But this is just a very strange state of affairs, and Scientologists don't even think about this. They don't even ask about it.
They're probably not even allowed to ask about it. They're not allowed to question, they just have to follow.
They just sort of go along with whatever it is that's being done. So there's a little history of the story of spending money like a drunken sailor on behalf of a dead man. I'll thank you all for watching this video to the end. I hope you check out the other videos. There's some more serious ones about Scientology's view on law enforcement, about the DOJ and what they had to say about Scientology and its fair game policies. Anyway, until next time, thank you and bye.
Wow. Now that was a trip. I mean, when you think about it, so much money spent on the hopes of a dead guy returning, L Ron Hubbard, when there's so many people can't afford a house. And this video was only a tip of the iceberg in relation to all the properties that Scientology own. I just thought that this one was interesting with the belief system and everything, and I thought it just kind of slotted into the paranormal genre just a bit, kind of thing. So that is basically it. That's the beliefs around L Ron Hubbard and the properties, the offices that will never be used, and they're basically all just shrines to L Ron Hubbard, a science fiction writer that went on to create a cult that still survives to this day, a cult that is damaging people, damaging families, ruining lives, you know. But yeah, that is basically it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will try and think of something else to talk about the next time, because this is kind of different for this channel, you know. So I'm not getting out as much, and I have to alter my life in such a way that I can still make some content. But I hope you enjoyed this content today. I'll leave a link to Mike Rinder's channel at the end of this video in the description. There may be other things within that you may be interested in. You know, we're not going to get into as I says, we're not going to get into the politics about it. I do that in my other channel. Anyway, talk to you soon. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for the support over the years, and I hope I can give you content that you will enjoy in the future, whatever kind of future that will be. Bye.